Evening, everyone, and welcome to another in a series of interviews with awesome improvisers and theater people in the Compass Improv interview series. And well, look
Evening,
right
everyone,
there,
and
she
welcome
is
to
with
another in a
sporting a new
series
do. It's
of
it's this
interviews
it's
with
it's our special
awesome
guest, Cooper Shaw. Hi, Cooper.
Hello.
It's great. It's great to see you. And I asked, this is a new look for you, and I was wondering how long. You said it was just like Wednesday, like last week,
Wednesday.
or something cool. So
Wednesday. Yeah.
has it? When's the last time you had your hair that short? I'm assuming there's no ponytail back
No,
there.
there's no ponytail.
Wow,
The last time I had it this short,
it's
I
been a
think
while.
it was a long time ago. I want to say it's approaching like 20 years since the
Oh
last.
wow, that is a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, but
But
I'm sure it feels good. Light.
yeah, it feels lighter. I will admit I have every now and then I go to take my hair out of the ponytail, and then I realize there's no ponytail, so I just
It's
pet the back of
it's a
my head.
phantom ponytail. Yeah.
Right? It's phantom ponytail. That's what I'm having right now.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, yeah, so I'm going to do some preliminary things here, let people know what we're in store for and who you are in case they're not as familiar as some of us are. But basically, if you go to Cooper's website, which I believe is it just coopershaw.com, right?
Is thecoopershaw.com.
The Cooper Shaw, not,
Yeah,
not just.
there was a not someone else already had Cooper Shaw, so it was the
Oh no, oh no.
Cooper Shaw.
Do not accept any imitations. And so the coopershaw.com, right at the top of the website, it kind of spells out all that you really need to know. It says actor, dialect coach, acting coach, writer, director, and improv geek. And we're going to be diving into as many of those as we can in our hour together here. But Cooper, among other things, she teaches at Second City Hollywood. Her credits include the Second City Conservatory in Chicago and the Actors Studio in New York City, as well as many other stage and screen appearances over the years. I would say it's fair to say your specialties include dialect training and character development. And so we're going to be we're going to be, like I said, looking into all of those areas as we go along. And just to remind you, as I mentioned, this is the fifth interview that we've done. We started in January. And it's been a really awesome time just getting to know some of these improvisers. We're starting off with a lot of St. Louis based people or people with St. Louis roots, but we're going to be expanding outside of that. In fact, Tara DeFrancisco, who I don't believe has any really strong St. Louis connections, although a lot of people here know her. She's going to be our next guest on Wednesday, June 2nd. And we also like to tie these interviews into a fundraiser for a charity that's chosen by our guest, and Cooper has chosen the Metro Trans Umbrella Group. We're going to learn a little bit more about them later and how you can donate to that good cause. By the way, I'm Bob Baker. I've been hosting this interview series. I'm on the board of the of Compass Improv, helping out with marketing and other things. I also teach and perform short form and musical improv. Even co-wrote a book with Laura Hall from Whose Line Is It Anyway? So I have a lot of skin in this game. But and then. I'm going to be asking Cooper a lot of questions up front, but we want your input. So if you're watching live, and I hope that you are, post your questions on the Facebook page here on the Compass page. And John Chapin, who we need to give a little round of applause to, he's our tech guy behind the scenes. He's also on the Compass board. He's taking care of those things and also watching the questions that you leave, and he'll be selecting those and sharing those with us here on Zoom as we go along. So that's the preliminary stuff. So Cooper, you ready to buckle up and have some fun here?
I'm ready.
Fabulous. So I kind of sort of start off with two questions. I don't know if they're related or if they have separate answers, but basically, like, when did you first get bit by the acting bug? I mean, I'm assuming maybe this goes back to childhood. So I'm
Oh yeah.
curious about that. And then, do you recall when you first became aware of improv? Again, these might be two separate questions, but
Yeah.
because I know you do theater and improv. But when did that first? I always like to find out what was the inception of it in your
The
life.
inception of the acting bug. Ooh, this is like a multi-layered answer that
Sure, go for it.
I think um I think that the most direct answer that I can give right now is that probably since I was a kid, like
Yeah.
um I used to play with my friends. We used to play, all sorts of different games, like, cops and robbers, or whatever that childhood game was. But we used to I was obsessed when I was younger with the show Remington Steele,
Okay. Yeah.
and also Superman. So there are two things that I was absolutely obsessed with when I was a kid. And so I had a couple of friends who would humor me, and we would like improvise various scenarios as either Remington Steele and Laura Holt or Superman, Clark Kent, Lois Lane, all of that stuff. So we just would have like, talking about who got to be the bad guy or who got to be the, and we would just run around the neighborhood pretending to be these characters. So I think that was probably the beginning of it.
That's cool. Yeah. And a lot of it, yeah, a lot of us have that sense of play and make believe when we're kids. But some of us make professions or careers out of it, and others just have fun with it. I'm curious, when you did Superman, did you play the Caped Crusader, or you didn't always play Lois Lane? I'm guessing. Or did you shit?
No, I actually never wanted to be. I never wanted to be Lois Lane. I always wanted to be Clark Kent, Superman.
Good for you. Awesome. That's fabulous. And so I think a lot of these things that we end up doing as vocations, we can trace back to childhood. So that's why I always like to ask that opening question.
Yeah.
But improv, and then I guess at some point, like when in school, did you say, oh, did you like, were you in school plays or like through grade school, high school?
So here's where it gets to the slightly more complicated answer is I took a drama class when I was in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember why I took drama. And I was in the drama club, and I absolutely hated it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was the most mortifying, embarrassing experience. And it was just like, I vowed never to do it again. It was just, that was it. 8th grade, I was done. Never again was I going to. And then in my junior year of high school, I had a hole to fill in my schedule. And it was either like take shop or take a theater class. And I was deathly afraid of power tools. So I took a theater class.
So because of your fear of power tools.
That's my fear of power tools.
Back into. So when you do theater, you never want to hang around the backstage crew. They're building the sets and all that. You stay away during that period.
Right. Well, yeah, but then, once I majored in theater, they did actually make us take all of the stagecraft classes. So I had to get over my fear of power tools pretty quick once I majored in theater. So,
but so with your junior year in high school, when you got reacquainted with theater, that was a better experience, and so you took to it more.
Yeah, it was a much better experience. Which can I just take a second and give a shout out to my high school drama teacher?
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Kurt Nadelceder. Mr. K, who is on Facebook. I don't know if he's going to see this, but Kurt Nadelceder absolutely changed, I think, the course of my life. Yeah. Wow. He just made it fun and accessible, and like had a really wonderful way of honoring each individual student's creativity and voice, and helping them find where they sort of fit in the whole thing. And it was just, it was amazing.
That's awesome. And obviously this is in St. Louis. I take it.
Yeah, this was in St. Louis.
And what school was it? You got to say, where'd you go to high school?
Where'd you go to high school? I went to Ladue Horton Watkins High School.
Okay, cool. And he was the theater or drama teacher there.
Drama teacher there. Yeah.
Fabulous. That's awesome.
And I took there was a prerequisite for taking the actual the acting 1 class. We had to take improv as a prerequisite before we could take acting. So I took the improv class thinking that was it, because I just had that hole to fill in my schedule. I was just going to take the improv and be done with it. Mm-hmm. I took the improv and I was like, what is this? Why have I not? And then that was it. I was done. I couldn't stop.
So that answers the second question.
All of the theater classes after that, and from then until I graduated. And then my college, it was my high school guidance counselor, who was the college counselor who was helping us sort of decide like what were we going to major in, where did we want to go to school. It was through a series of questions that he asked that he was the one that sort of said, determined that my passion was really acting and theater, after I kept saying, well, I'm really good at math. I guess I could study math. He was like, yeah, but what classes do you really like? I was like, well, I'm doing really great in my foreign language classes. He's like, yeah, but what do you really like? And I was like, really like my psychology class. He's like, yeah, but no, what do you really like? I was like, well, I really like my acting. He's like, that's it. You're studying acting. I'm like,
Wow. That's
and I can remember my response to him at the time was, wait, people do that? Like, it didn't occur to me that majoring in theater was
wow.
something that I could do. So
That is so cool, because you normally think of people who work in the when administrative aspects of schools are trying to get people to walk the straight and narrow and go the typical career path. It sounds like this counselor was actually knew that you weren't being honest and was steering you to what was right for you as opposed to what was proper, which is what you were thinking.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
What a gift that was.
right, absolutely, yep.
Wow, that's fabulous. So I know in your resume, and I know just because we've known each other personally for a number of years, so I know there's some St. Louis roots. I know there was a time you spent in New York. You've been in LA for at least a few years or more now. So could just take us a little bit through that journey. You grew up in St. Louis. Is that where it all started?
Did, yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
grew up in St. Louis, born and raised, and then from there did my undergrad in New Mexico. So I was in New Mexico for a few years in Albuquerque. And then from there went to Chicago.
That's right. There's a Chicago connection too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was where I got involved, like really got involved in improv and the Second City Conservatory when I was living in Chicago. And then from there went to New York and went to New York for my master's. And I was there for longer, I think, than I was initially intending on being there.
Mhm.
But all told, I think I was there for about almost 11 years.
11 years. Oh, wow. And then because you list the Actors Studio in New York. Is that and so did you do a combination of regular theater and improv in New York as well, or mostly?
Yeah, I did. I did combo. I did a lot of improv. I did a lot of sketch comedy, and did a good amount of theater as well. And then actually started acting in film when I was living in New York too, which was the first that I'd done that. So,
oh wow,
yeah, it was. And once I started acting in film and doing on-camera stuff, it was like this. It was like a whole new puzzle to try to figure out. Like, how do you? Ooh, now how does this work? How do you do this? How do you? It was really, it's fascinating.
And I don't have a ton of experience certainly in film work. I've done a lot of things on camera, but I guess the main difference between stage acting and acting for the camera is the subtlety. Like on a stage, especially if it's a big theater, you have to sort of big overblown just so people can read what's going on, right? Whereas you can be more subtle and nuanced when you're on camera, especially with close-ups. Is that a good way to summarize it?
It's a really great way to summarize it. I think there's much more of I don't know, a different kind of intimacy that can happen on camera because of the subtlety of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. And then I guess at some point you came back to St. Louis after New York. Is that correct? Or
I did. So I reached the point where I think like I just knew I needed a break from New York. So I ended up going home to St. Louis for what was meant to be a holiday season. And it just felt so good to be there that I never left. So the holiday season extended to what turned out to be 5 years that I was back in St. Louis. And then it was time to just kind of like head out to LA and see what the LA scene was about. And
yeah, because so we met during that 5-year period when you were back in St. Louis. Met at a party. Our friend Tracy and David, I guess we're having a party. And that's where we met because you go, oh, Cooper does improv or whatever. And I went, oh, and this first time we'd ever met. But it was some time after that before we connected. You actually ended up being in some of my short form shows.
Yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
I remember we had met when, and how many years ago was it when you moved made the move to LA? Is it 5-ish?
Not quite 5 years, just about 5 years. Yeah, a
Okay, so
little over
close.
4 years. Yeah.
So between 4 and 5 years ago. So I do remember this. I remember that you went out there, and I think a few months into it, I reached out to you, like to send you a text, and I just was kind of checking in on how are things going. And so this is, I hope you don't mind, mind me revealing this, but I remember at the
No, I
time,
don't mind this at all.
no, that you responded. It was like you were like struggling with it, getting acquainted to this, getting acclimated to this new city, and you were like questioning the move or whatever. But it was like right after that, it seemed to me things started clicking for you. Is that a correct assessment?
This is a very accurate assessment. Yeah,
Okay.
I remember that like it was yesterday, Bob, that message that you sent me. And I just like full on honestly, I think I called you.
You, we
I
may
like
ha-
got on
yeah.
the phone with you. I was like, Bob, what have I done?
What
I
am I?
don't know why I'm here. Like, yeah, I was
But
hardcore questioning it. And then I turned a corner. Things just started happening and falling into place. And
yeah, and maybe even the connection with Second City in Hollywood maybe came. I don't know if that came right after that, but there was,
that
but you.
came pretty soon after that. Yeah. Yeah.
So how does that speak to like advice that maybe people have when they go to a new city? Um, I guess it shows that allowing yourself time, allowing yourself actually to feel the emotions of being out of place too. Maybe not throwing in the towel too soon because you always got questioning. Do I just give this a little more time, or just do I just stick with it? And how long do I stick with it? But what are your thoughts looking back on that now?
I still have so many. I don't even know. I guess my thoughts on it looking back are yeah, give it time. It takes time.
Hmm.
Um, I think for me, what happened was the first like 4 months that I was here was definitely like the honeymoon phase. I
Hmm.
loved it. I thought it was great. And then at about the 4 month mark, I hit that, what am I doing? Like, I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
and then I started just kind of having this, like, I kept bargaining with myself, like, okay, I'm going to give it this amount of time and then see how I feel.
Hmm. And
And yeah, so I just kept kind of like, once I would hit that time frame, I would sort of like decide to re-up, I guess, as it
yeah.
were. Like,
And
all
what were
right.
some of those things that finally started turning the corner? Was it like getting connected with I guess certainly as your network and people that expands, I mean, maybe more opportunities come your way. But what were some of those early specific things that turned the corner for you?
I just sort of started getting more engaged in the community that I was living in. Like, just like, all right, well, I'm here. I may as well get involved. Like,
Meet
you know,
people, attend
with
other people's
people
classes, maybe, or
and attend classes. I started taking classes. I started doubling down on hitting auditions more. Uh, all of those things. And then just really getting my materials together and submitting myself for more things, and even maybe submitting myself for things that I on some level thought were outside of my sort of comfort zone, or outside of what
Mhm.
maybe people would have expected. I don't know. They're
Yeah,
sort of like casting a wider net is
yeah.
basically. Yeah.
So it's getting engaged, yeah, with the
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, with the community. I mean, even locally here, I didn't move to a new city, but in 2014 is when I decided to stop dabbling in teaching short form, and I committed to a regular schedule, and then I started going to the improv shop and seeking out other people that were teaching and just getting involved in the community. Yeah, and things happen when you get engaged like that. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're coming out of a pandemic, so those opportunities maybe aren't as plentiful
Right.
the
Yeah. I
past
mean,
year, but
that's
hopefully,
a whole other thing.
yeah,
But yeah, and then a lot of it too was really taking a moment to sit with and figure out, well, what are my goals? What do I really want? Like, what would really make me happy? And then it's like, okay, well, I'm not happy right now. What do I need to do in order to make myself happy? And then
yeah.
those were the things I started doubling down on a little
Very,
bit.
very, very cool. I'm seeing. So John is pasting. There's already some questions coming in.
Oh, cool.
Um, one is from BJ Lang. I don't know. This is a little tongue in cheek. He says, "How is your apartment treating you now?" He asks, "Also, how do you feel having a cat has helped you?" These are really in-depth questions from BJ.
No, these are great questions. Thanks, BJ. Hi, and the apartment's great. I'm settling in nicely. Love it. And so I adopted a cat during the pandemic, and she's been absolutely amazing. I'm in love with her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
We got
So,
a small terrier dog too.
oh, nice.
Last
Nice.
summer. It's changed our whole lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I totally. That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Like, yeah, she's just amazing.
Doug asks, "What's the most only in New York moment you had when you were in those 11 years you were in New York? Anything stand out as a fun story to share? Of that's
Think about that.
only in New York."
Only in New York.
And and sometimes I ask people about their brushes with greatness too. Did you run into any like people that you admire, iconic figures?
Oh my God. I am the worst at that. I am the absolute worst at that. I have a couple of friends who continually tease me because I have a tendency to have run-ins with celebrities and not realize that they're celebrities. And I will full on have conversations with them as if they are people who I know from somewhere.
Just not
I
sure who.
can't place why I know them.
Yeah. Who did that happen with?
Oh, geez.
It-
It happened with a very well-known Pulitzer Prize winning playwright who won the Pulitzer Prize for M. Butterfly. And I was sitting with him and his wife at some after show party because I had worked backstage crew for this show. And we're with the entire cast and crew went out closing night, and we're sitting around this table at this restaurant. And I'm sitting right next to his wife, who had introduced herself as Catherine, and then introduced her husband as David. And I was like, "Oh, hi, Catherine. Hi, David. I'm Cooper. Very nice to meet you." And then we're just chatting and having a great time. And the whole group is chatting and everyone's laughing. And Catherine and I are laughing at all the same jokes. And we're talking, and then we start talking about the acting craft and like our different approaches to it. We had this really awesome conversation about mask work and character work and like all this stuff. And another actor friend of mine was sitting across the table and started asking Catherine questions about Neil Patrick Harris. And I couldn't figure out why she was asking questions about Neil Patrick Harris to this woman. I was like, "That's so random. Why would you do that?" Like, I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
So later, I go into the restroom with this friend of mine, and I'm asking her, "Why were you asking about Neil Patrick Harris? Like, what am I missing?" She's like, "Do you have any idea who you're sitting next to?"
Mm.
I was like, "Catherine and David?" She's like, "She was the nurse on Doogie Howser."
Oh wow.
I had no idea. So later I call another friend of mine as I'm walking to the subway. I call another friend of mine and told them about this story. And she was like, "Wait a minute. You were sitting next to Catherine and David." I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "You know that it's David won the Pulitzer Prize for M. Butterfly." And I was like, "Oh." So like to this day, it's a running joke between me and this friend of mine that
But isn't that in hindsight? Isn't that a blessing though? I mean, if you had known, would you probably have had the same conversation with them?
Nope.
Yeah.
No, probably if I had known, I would not have said, "Oh, hey, David, congratulations on your show at the Public." I probably would have been like, "Ah, blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
I wouldn't have said anything.
So sometimes I think being ignorant has its advantages.
Right.
Being clueless actually can build you. Yeah, you probably they bonded with them a lot more than if you had been starstruck, right?
No. So I do things like that all the time. There was another time I ran into another actor who I knew looked really familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But this level of familiarity that for me, it was like I was seeing an old friend of mine who I hadn't seen in a really long time, but I couldn't figure out why I knew them.
Mm-hmm.
So walk up, I was like, I was bartending at the time in New York, and this one customer comes in, and I looked at them and went, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And they responded equally as enthusiastically. They were like, "Oh, I'm great. How are you?" I was like, "Oh, they know me too.
Yeah.
Know each other." Okay. So we had this entire conversation, and then they followed it up with, "How's your family?" I was like, "Oh God, he knows my family. Where do I know this person from?" I was like, "My family's great. How's your family?" So we had this entire back and forth thing, and then realized I did not know this person at all. They were an actor on Scrubs.
Oh, cool. But you had seen them.
We had an entire like improvised conversation with each other.
Oh, that's cool.
So we were long lost friends, and neither of us knew each other at all. So
that's so cool. Only at that, I think that would apply as a qualify as an only in New York
sure.
moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about the selected charity, and then I got other questions. There's a couple more that have come in, and those of you watching live, feel free to type your questions into the comments on the Compass Improv page where you're watching this, and John, who was monitoring them, will be feeding them to us. I also have more questions to ask. I want to talk about dialects and character development and some other things related to what you do. But let's talk. And then John also has a screenshot from the website for Metro Trans Umbrella Group. And so just talk about why you chose this and why this is a meaningful charity to you, if you don't mind taking a moment to discuss that.
Absolutely. It's something that's just near and dear to my heart. I think it's important as an ally for the LGBTQIA community to do whatever we can for that. So it's just very near and dear to my heart. So
very cool. And I know there's a screenshot there that should be showing. And just real quickly, I'm going to pull it up here myself to take a look at it. But yeah, so it's bringing together the transgender community in the St. Louis metro area. And so you can go to the website, which, oh boy, I know if you Google Metro Trans Umbrella Group, you will quickly find it. And go to the website and check out a lot of activities. So here's what we do with this, though. We always again have our guests select a charity, and much of the time it's St. Louis based, as this one is. And so what we'll do is we collect the donations. Certainly you can go to the charity and donate directly, but there's an advantage to doing it through Compass. So between now and at the end of the day or midnight on this coming Friday, I believe the 14th, any donations that come through at compass.org/donate, we will match the first $50 that comes in. So you can actually double your donation if you do it through Compass between now and this Friday, May 14th of 2021. And then we will collect that money again, match the first 50 and send in the total to this worthwhile organization. But in addition to collecting funds, we just want to bring awareness to nonprofits that are doing good work in the St. Louis area. So make sure and check that out. Again, it's Metro Trans Umbrella Group. So thank you for choosing that, Cooper. Let's see here. So I do want to switch gears and talk a little bit about dialect, because I know the last time I saw you in person was like in January of last year, but prior to the COVID taking over our lives, and you were like a guest coach at one of my drop-in classes.
Yeah.
Had a great turnout, and I really enjoyed your work there. Mary asks, Cooper, do you have a favorite dialect you use? Oh, like when you're drinking or with strangers?
When I'm drinking or with strangers. I have several that I sort of are my default sort of back pocket that I sometimes sneak out when I don't even intend them to. For a while, it was the French accent.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, it was a vaguely Eastern European accent. But lately, I've been sort of pinging to the Mid-Atlantic, Transatlantic.
Oh, really? In the U.S.?
Yeah, and just sort of playing around with doing this one every now and then just because it's fun. Just like,
That's
old
pretty
timey
cool.
Hollywood stuff. So
Yeah. Let me hear, if you don't mind me. I didn't warn you I'd be putting you on the spot here, but let's say that we're at a bar and you're recommending a favorite wine in a French accent. Give me a little sample of the French accent, and then we'll switch over, and then transition to the Eastern European one that you mentioned that was a
oh
favorite.
goodness me, I had a feeling you were gonna do this too. Like, oh!
Bad Bob.
Yeah, if we are talking about wine at a bar, me, I am a fan of Chateauneuf.
Ah.
Oui, it is a very delicate sort of thing on the palate. It sits on your tongue in a very friendly manner.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh la oui.
bon.
And- how about the same?
I don't even know if Chateauneuf is a wine. I
Yeah,
just looked that up.
it's you. Yeah, I'm sold on it. And then if you're giving that same recommendation with a more of an Eastern European accent, how would you? What
Oh,
would that sound
uh,
like?
okay, yeah, give me a second to get there.
I know. Get into yeah,
Yes, I
and
need to switch the gears. Okay, so if we go slightly to Eastern Europe, I would recommend maybe for you a Malbec. Maybe sounds like it would be very good. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I
Beautiful.
don't know very much about Malbec, but it sounds like good. I've heard people say they like it a lot, and
I love it. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot there. So, what inspired your interest in doing? So, I guess obviously before you taught, you're doing a lot of teaching in dialects, but I assume you were doing them. What drew you to that over the
I
years?
don't even know. I feel like I should have a better answer for this. I have always played around with accents and dialects
Mhm.
since I was a wee little thing.
Yeah,
And I'm not entirely sure how or why that even came about. I think part of it when I was really young, my brothers were really big into watching Monty Python.
yeah.
So I got really into Monty Python at a very young age. So started listening to those accents and imitating what I was hearing, and it was just loads of fun to imitate what I was hearing other people do. Um, and my grandmother's very dear friends when I was a really little child were from Eastern Europe. So I was here, my ear was kind of tuned into the Eastern European accent from a really young age too. And then, yeah, I just kept meeting more people from all over and really tuning into what were the sounds I was hearing them do. And it was just fun to hear it and exciting to experience it. And
Try to reproduce it with your own voice. Yeah.
yeah,
I know.
yeah,
I know as a musician and a singer from years of being and playing in cover bands years ago and having to emulate whatever, the original singer of these various popular songs, it helped train me as a singer,
yeah.
how to use my vocal cords and change them to get different sounds. And so I totally get why you were attracted to dialects in that way too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
and then,
then
yeah,
like once I majored in theater and then started taking all the voice classes that we have to take as actors, it kind of standardized those accents a little bit more in terms of like learning about all the finer points of the International Phonetic Alphabet and all the ways to like standardize a thing and reteach it to other people, and it just kind of kept going from there. So
awesome, awesome. You're doing that a lot lately, it seems.
yeah, yeah,
You teach that through Second City in Hollywood too,
yeah,
and doing some of your own independent classes as well, I think.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Larry
Mhm.
asks or says, he says, I participated in one of your workshops at Comedy Sports in St. Charles, got so much out of it, still think about it often, he says. So that's a nice compliment. And then he asks, what was your most fulfilling or favorite performance job that you had? and you would definitely do again if you could. So I don't know if that could be on stage, on screen, but what was a fulfilling performance role or job that you've
Oh,
had?
wow.
Uh,
So many. So many. One that really sticks out was when I was in New York. Um, it was a show that I was in called The Rubber Room.
hmm.
That was produced by a theater company called Artistic New Directions. Um, and it was just amazing. It was scripted and also improvised. It wasn't really improvised. It was entirely scripted. However, they had 5 different theater companies that were all rehearsing the show
Hmm.
independently of each other with their
Okay.
own casts. But then each performance, they would take one actor from each of those different theater companies and schedule them to perform together, having never rehearsed together.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
we
Wow.
all knew our lines and knew our characters and knew who the other characters were, but we didn't know what the other actors' approach to it was. So
Yeah.
and we literally, they also, the way they structured it was they staggered each actor's call time. So we never set eyes on each other until the second we were on stage. And
Wow.
it's just,
That is cool. And
it was
talk
so,
about,
it was so amazing.
so one of the big, skills of an improviser is listening. That sounds like you really have to listen and pay attention to what your fellow performer is doing, even in a scripted play, to know how to respond to them, even knowing your lines. I love that idea.
Absolutely. It was, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are like a lot of standout moments that I can think of, but that's still one of like the best. So,
Wow, that is so cool. And
yeah,
then,
great question.
yeah, yeah, that was a great question. Doug has a question too here. He says, "What's something that you struggled with related to your own performing or performance, and how did you overcome it?" So, yeah, this is a great one. And it's easy to talk about our successes, but is there a challenge that you had to overcome, or a particular aspect of acting or improv that you, uh, yeah, have had had to
Yeah,
work with?
that's a really great question. And I I must say anxiety.
Anxiety, and
Yeah.
how does it show up? In what form?
Oh, like a lot of different forms. Yeah, but I get performance anxiety and stage fright really badly.
Wow.
And so I know this about myself, so I have to I've if it's a half hour call time to the theater, I know for myself that I need to get there earlier than that so I can give myself the time to like get comfortable in the space, do my breathing, do my whatever stretches and exercises,
Hmm.
and then when the rest of the group arrives, then engage with other people. But that's sort of, I know I have to give myself like extra buffer
Yeah.
time because I really do like,
So even
yeah.
someone so even someone like yourself who's been on stage, been on screen,
Yeah.
you've taught and presented to groups, even you, people would think you're immune to that, or you've overcome the stage fright thing because you're such a, an extrovert in that area. But oh no.
No, yeah, no.
Oh. And even before we went live with this very interview, you admitted to us, you said,
I was
I'm a little nervous. I said,
like,
really? I'm
like sometimes I also just have to like say it out loud and then I'm
Yeah.
fine. You know what? I'm nervous, right? I've acknowledged it and now I'm like, I'm okay.
It
Yeah,
diffuses it, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
shedding light on it. So, but you're doing great. So no
Oh,
one
thanks.
could tell. Yeah.
I'm
And I
like,
told you I would make it easy too. So, um, so that's great. So, I'm gonna. So feel free to leave some comments. John's gonna continue to monitor them and feed them to us in our remaining time. We're gonna at least go up to the top of the hour, so another 20 minutes here. But so we talked about the challenge there, and thank you for revealing that. Um,
yeah.
let's go to a strength. Like if you had to sum up like what you're known for, or maybe the biggest thing that you feel like the biggest value that you bring to the table, either as a performer, an improviser, or a teacher. If I had to put you on the spot to name like a strength that you're proud of, What would that be?
Uh, you mean like I've become known for doing voices and accents and
Dialect.
dialects.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of that. And like, I think it's amazing that this thing that I just inherently have a lot of fun doing
Mhm.
is also something that I get to do for a living, which is just blows my mind.
Yeah.
But I think I'm known for more frequently doing comedy and comedic material. And I'm also super proud. I'm super proud of that. I'm also really proud of that I can switch gears and do rather serious, more dramatic material as well.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. And
and that I'm given the opportunity to do that too is really great. That I'm not, people are starting to see that as well and not only seeing the comedic stuff. So
do you find that variety, yeah, it keeps you fresh, keeps you satisfied as an artist? Like if you've done a lot of comedy back to back, does it feel good to switch things up and do a like
it feels really good to switch things up.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, to have the variety and the different bits of levity
Mhm.
within things too is really nice and important. Yeah.
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 And even within improv, I know I tend to be use uh improv for the lightheartedness because I just think people need to laugh more. Sort of a personal value or mission of mine to spread more lightheartedness, and I think improv is a great way to do that. However, I know a lot of people, and I think you partially fall into this camp and realize that there are non-comedic ways of using improv. Like you can in a scene if there it doesn't have to be cracking jokes. It can be a serious moment between two characters. It doesn't have to be funny. I think I've been even some of your early classes I attended to. You kind of brought that out. Is that does that ring true
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. And I think that was also something that was instilled in me pretty early on at when I was studying at Second City too, is that it's the truth of the moment and really being present and listening to and responding to your scene partner, and doing the moment to moment work and finding the funny by committing to the truth of the moment is always sort of how I've approached it. So
Ooh, I like
yeah,
the way you worded that.
yeah.
Yeah. And
I give Michael Gelman credit for that one.
oh, cool. So he may be somebody we should reach out to for a future
Oh,
interview. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
he's
He's
amazing.
renowned.
Absolutely, he's amazing. Yeah.
And I think the book by Sharna Halpern and Del Close, isn't it called Truth in Comedy?
Mhm.
I think that's what the name of it is.
Yeah.
Talks a lot about the development of the Herald and all that because I have a signed copy of that book somewhere
Oh,
around here
nice.
by Sharna. And so yeah, so that is yeah being so basically and maybe yeah let's kind of I think we'll use a lot of our remaining time to answer questions, but also talk about the craft
Yeah.
too. And so and that's just being truthful in the moment, whether it's funny, serious, whatever it happens to be real at that time, right?
Yeah.
And just following that. Um, so that's awesome. What are is there a common improv or acting principle that you maybe have a different take on it? Either you go against the grain on something, like here's a standard thing you always hear, but I don't think that's necessary, or maybe just you take a different slant on something that's a common piece of advice for either actors or improvisers. Anything come to mind? Like I know
I'm sure there is something, but God, I can't think of anything.
and
Well, yeah. I think that it's probably a common misconception that uh, Second City Improv and uh, the Stanislavski method, which I have my MFA in, that they're diametrically opposed and they actually work really nicely in conjunction with each other. So,
mhm.
um,
What is the general perception of the difference of those two things for someone who's not overly like, for instance, the Stanislavski method? What is a philosophy there that some people think conflicts with Second City or with the improv?
I think the common misconception is that the method is very, very serious and about delving deep into your own kind of well of despair, that it doesn't leave itself open for comedy.
Okay.
And then I also think there's a common misconception that improv must always be comedic. So there's always that sort of, there's a little bit like misconceptions on both sides, I think sometimes. So,
Okay.
But yeah, the thing that I've found though is that they both at the core are, as I was saying, like about being in the moment and really being truthful to the moment and breathing into the moment and listening and responding and yeah, all of that and connecting to the truth.
That yeah.
Yeah, that's what
And
they're both kind of at the core about that for me. So
that may be the core craft message here is just being truthful to the moment. I
yeah,
love that. We could all use that reminder. That's for sure.
yeah.
Um, John, I believe asks, as a teacher, what is your favorite lesson or what's your favorite thing to teach others? I know that's pretty open ended, but do you have a favorite? Like, is there something that lights you up? Like when you see somebody get something in one of your classes, what is that?
Oh, so many things. It's such a great question. Um, I really delight in just like micro moments of seeing the light bulb go off for somebody. And it can be on anything, but like something that you know somebody's struggling to understand or connect to. And then all of a sudden you just see them, you see it land in their being. I get so excited that I get shivers and I go, yes! Like I jump out of the chair and I'm like, ah, that was amazing. So yeah, it can be anything. It's just anytime anybody has that aha moment, they just get
Mhm.
very excited. So
Um, and we talked a bit about your dialect training, which I know has become a more prominent thing. But isn't character development another thing that you embrace and teach as well? And
yeah, yeah, very much. I haven't done as much of the character development
Mhm.
teaching since everything's gone on Zoom.
Yeah.
Uh, primarily primarily the teaching has been in character voices and accents and
Right.
dialects. But so talking about accents and dialects and how that can help to inform character is something that I've been
Mm.
more specializing in. But yeah,
Cool.
uh,
So outside of the voice, which of course is important, and I think if what's some of your just top basic tips for improvisers, like assuming a character in an improv scene? Of course, you're making this up on the spot, and what are some like things to keep in mind to have like strong characters in a scene?
also excellent question.
I know. Really
That's
testing you
why
here.
you do this, right? Because you're good at asking questions. So I like to lead from physical first.
Okay.
And that can be like any small, subtle thing. And this is something that I learned from a couple of different people who are just, I think, the best at what they do. So of course, like I borrow from everyone that I've studied with in the past. Gary Austin was really amazing at this type of work. He was the founder of the Groundlings.
Oh yeah.
And Dave Rosowski is also amazing at this type of work. So I lead from physical first, and it can be a super subtle thing, like even just tuning into how is your foot hitting the floor so sometimes when we're doing live improv shows, we're on the sidelines, we're not in the scene until we take a step off of the sidelines into the playing space.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes even just paying attention to how my foot rolls through itself and how does the rest of my leg then transfer up through my body. And then before I know it, by the time I've taken the second step, I've found a physicality and then the voice presents itself from there usually. So
Cool. Yeah. And I don't know if it was you I'm having this flashback of somebody. I think it was you when you were guest coaching in one of my classes when you talked about like think of a physical sensation, like maybe your right arm or whatever is tense or your hand is tingling or something. And it's not even something you have to announce or make people aware of, but it just informs your your character.
Yeah.
Just knowing that in your head, it can alter how you respond and how you. Is that something like that you would have taught?
Yeah, it's very much something that I would have taught. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. And that the audience doesn't have to know what it is that you're playing with, as long as it's a tool that's working for you to get you somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know a couple months, or no, this last month. Yeah, we interviewed BJ Lang, and I know he was watching earlier, maybe still is now. I think having conversations with him, I think he focuses more, I think maybe on emotion, perhaps. I think he says if he knows his emotion of his character, that helps him as the base. And then with you, it said it's more as physicality that then affects the voice, which then ties into emotion. But it's funny when we all have different tools or different starting points. And I
Yeah,
think,
that's really interesting too, because now listening to you talk about that, I can definitely think of instances where I've led with the emotional life first,
yeah,
and then the emotional life informs the physicality,
yeah, yeah.
and that also informs the voice. So it really it depends.
Yeah, you can mix it up too. You wouldn't
Yeah,
just stick with just one way, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah, but those are all tools. So what are our what's our toolkit as actors and improvisers? So one's the physicality, one's the emotion, the mental state of the character. One could be the voice, the inflection. Um, I guess those are the three main ones. I guess you could think about environment too, envisioning where you're at and how you would respond in that
Yeah,
space, right?
yeah,
Am I
yeah.
missing anything? Hey, we're just kind of brainstorming,
Uh,
spitballing here.
no, but like environment, absolutely. And then, objects in that environment, but that ties into physicality too,
Yeah, the
right?
object work. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Cool, cool. I love this kind of free form brainstorming here.
right.
We have another question from Mary. Is there someone you'd really like to work with but haven't yet? Go
Wow.
crazy. If you could just go nuts, who would you like to work with?
All of them. I want to
Oh,
work with everyone.
all of
Um, oh,
I guess these could be actors, well-known actors. They could be other improvisers, um, people you worked with before you would like to connect with again. Oh,
I'm hard pressed to answer this question. I would love to work with anyone. Benedict Cumberbatch is coming to mind. I
Sherlock.
think
Yeah.
I'm starting to think of all of the English actors I would love to work with. Yeah. Um,
That's okay. I know it's a wide
there's
open.
an actually, this is kind of obscure, but there's a show on Netflix right now that I'm absolutely obsessed with. It's an Australian show called Offspring.
Okay.
And I recommend it frequently to my students when they're wondering about the Australian accent. I'm like, "Ooh, watch this show." There's an actress that's on that show by the name of Asher Ketty, who I think is an absolute genius. And I would just it would just be fascinating to work with her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And her name again to Asher. You said.
Asher Ketty is.
Oh, that's an interesting name. That's a cool name. Yeah. Um.
She's so good at what she
Oh,
does.
check that out on
So good
Netflix.
at what she does. You know how sometimes you just watch a thing and no matter, I don't know if anyone else does this, I do. I'll watch things and I'll try to imagine if I can imagine any other actor playing that role.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, this role that Asher Ketty plays on Offspring is like she's the only one that I could imagine doing what she does. It's like
So well suited for it. Yeah. Yeah.
so good.
Which is why it's crazy that thing you mentioned in New York with the different actors coming together that you've ever worked with. Yeah, because the actor brings so much to it.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it, yeah, that's why that still blows my mind. I love that story you shared earlier.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's such an experience. Yeah.
So now that you've been teaching for a while, do you have any tips for people who aspire, either are currently or aspire to be teachers in theater or improv? What have you learned, and what's like a best practice to be a good teacher?
Uh, listen.
Where have I heard that before?
Um,
That improv skill.
but like listening with your entire being, kind of, because I think
Mhm.
you really tune into a lot of what goes on with the students, and each individual needs something different in each moment too. So not to treat each performer or student like they're cookie cutters, right? So
Right.
um yeah, just being tuned into the individual is
Cool. And trying to
cool thing.
intuit and sense what they need in each
Yeah,
moment. Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. This is a question I've asked in recent interviews. We have a lot, there's a lot of advice for beginning improvisers and, learning yes and listening and all that good stuff. But I've been asking some of your advice that more experienced players need. Like sometimes we get in ruts or if you've been doing this a while, maybe you stop growing. What are some challenges or advice that you have for more seasoned, intermediate or advanced performers?
I don't know if I have any, Bob. Uh, Sometimes, I mean, I guess I don't know if this will resonate with anyone. Maybe it will. But I've gotten to points sometimes where I felt just like burnt out on a thing,
Mhm.
or like I'm not finding the same kind of joy with a thing that I know I once had. And for me, what I do is I just take a break. I step away,
Yeah.
just like give myself a beat, do something else entirely for a little minute, and then I usually come back to it and I'm refreshed and I have a new perspective and I have a new,
That,
you know.
that's
uh,
great advice. And I'm thinking back to your earlier stories, didn't you kind of, in a bigger scale, reach that after your 11 years in New York, where you said I just you were getting kind of burnt out on that, and you came back to St. Louis
yeah, yeah.
to get a fresh.
Seems to be a running theme. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bigger version of this, but you're talking about just for a month or whatever, s- just get away from it, or as long as you as
Yeah,
you
just
as you
like go
feel that
do
you
something
need.
else. Go do something else that feeds your soul, that, listen to
Yeah.
music that makes you happy. And then like it can even be like taking a break for 10 minutes. Doesn't have to be like a massive amount of time, but
Okay, yeah. Could be as little as that, or so cool. Well, we're kind of heading into the top of the hour here. This has been awesome. I want to remind people again that in addition to having this awesome interview with Cooper Shaw, we're also creating some awareness for the Metro Trans Umbrella Group, which you can reach at stlmetrotrans.org. That's their website. But here's the deal: we are collecting funds for this organization through Compass Improv, and it should be right on your screen there. It's compassimprov.org/donate. Go to that page between now and midnight on this coming Friday, May 14th, and enter the amount of your choice. Compass Improv will match the first $50 that come in. We'll total things up, and next week we will send them a donation. So you could, by going through Compass, you can double your donation potentially. And so, thank you, Cooper, again for choosing them, and
yeah, you.
we're all allies and supporters of these various causes, and so that's fabulous. And then, where can people go to find out more about you if they want to?
Well, you can find me on social media. Facebook seems to be like my go-to thing. So I have Facebook, or my website,
Which is the
vcoopershaw.com, right? Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Cooper, not Coopershaw.com, the
Coopershaw.com.
Coopershaw.com. And on Facebook, do you have, is it just your personal profile, or do you also have a page related to your acting stuff?
I do have a page related to my acting stuff. So there's a Cooper Shaw professional page, and also a personal, but they
Yeah.
kind of blend together. They're
That,
like,
that's right. I know, my life is an open
I
book. I
mean,
don't have like much separation between the,
yeah, I kind of don't have much separation either.
yeah.
So I kind of think they might end up being like the same page eventually. So
They're
who
just
knows?
going to meld together.
Uh,
So that's fabulous. And then I want to remind people again that on Wednesday, June 2nd, so that's only not that, well, yeah, 3 weeks or so away, Tara DeFrancisco, who was her and her, I guess it's her husband or partner, Rance. They have a duet. They do Here, the improvised musical. Are you aware of them?
I've seen it. They're amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're really good. And I know they spent some time in Chicago where they had a lot going, but then they ended up moving to Columbus, Ohio, which I believe Tara's family is from there. And so a few years ago they created this space called The Nest that apparently has been really successful. Of course, it's all been kind of thrown out of whack with with COVID. But she's a pretty, and she's yeah, had to overcome some health challenges, but still maintain her
Mhm.
positive attitude and continued to work. And so I know there's a great story there. So that'll be on Wednesday, June 2nd, starting also at 7 p.m. Eastern. Also want to give a shout out to John Chapin, who behind the scenes was taking care of all the tech, making us look and sound good. Thank you, John. And I think we're going to wrap things up. Any parting words, Cooper? So it wasn't so bad, right?
No, it was great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was great. It's always fun to talk to you. So thank you for having me
You
on the show.
You bet. It was a joy. Just hang there. We're gonna say goodbye to the folks on Facebook right now. So long, everybody. We'll see you next time with the next Compass interview. Bye for now.